An Introduction to the Apocalypse of John, Revelation, by me. Originally, this channel was about martial arts. Then the first great ad-apocalypse happened, and shadow banning, demonetization, and channel deletions were occurring. Among channels that were getting hit were martial arts channels. I had just started posting vids and had gotten to 100 viewers. And I was like, I don't want to close down my channel. So I switched to philosophy and religion as my topic. I did a few vids that got some positive feedback, and then I decided to take on the Bible and the Quran. The Quran vids were getting 1,000 views per vid. And for a channel with only 100 subs, that was great. So I was like, you know what I know even better than the Quran? The Bible. And quickly, my channel tanked. Some of my original Bible vids still only have under 100 views. Eventually, YouTube opened back up, martial arts was back on the menu, but I had moved on. I was doing debates with atheists, and I eventually got married and started a new job where I worked 6 days a week, 12 hours a day. So bye-bye upload schedule. The Bible was too large of a subject to analyze fully on my small channel. But I like to finish what I start. So to close out my Bible study on this channel, before I move on to other books and back to martial arts, I'd like to talk about the book of Revelation. Revelation was the first biblical book I read, and I loved it. Now, years later, I'd like to talk about it. The book of Revelation relates back to the book of Daniel, an apocalyptic text included in the Old Testament Hebrew Bible. It should also be said that Revelation was not considered canonical nor orthodox by many prominent figures in both the early and late early church. Even in medieval times, and even by Protestant church doctors, the appropriateness of including Revelation in canon was considered something that was up for debate. And going back to the early church, rulings as early as the 3rd century state that Revelation is only appropriate for instruction and teaching if it is read in a strictly allegorical sense. So, why the controversy of including this book in the canon of Scripture? Well, if you're watching this vid, you most likely already know. Revelation is a literary and coded work full of symbolism, presented as if it were an elaborate or extended epistle. This is formal apocalyptic writing at its best, written by a man who claims to be named John, while in exile on the island of Patmos for being a Christian, most likely a disciple of John and a member of the Johannine Church, the 7 parishes in Asia Minor or modern Turkey that are mentioned in the text. Surprisingly, in this letter, this John does not make a claim to apostolic authority, but instead presents himself as a witness and a servant of God, and implies that the apostles are of the past from when he is writing. Yet people are still apt to ascribe this work to the apostle St. John, son of Zebedee. But regardless, this John was most likely a Jewish Christian writing during the transition period between Judaism and Christianity, during a period of Roman persecution. And he considers himself a pastor of several non-Pauline churches. The Rome that this John was railing against is that of the Latins at Ephesus, as Ephesus was the political, economic, and religious center of his time, written most likely between 60 and 96 AD, and directed against Nero, Titus, and Domitian. The first thing that must be said of Revelation from a Catholic perspective is that it is not psychic prophecy of far future events. For instance, it is not dealing with the Great Schism, the rise of Luther's Protestantism, the coming of Napoleon, or the rise of Hitler, nor is it even about the absolute literal future end of the world or the collapse of the universe in totality. The rules for interpretation of this book should be the same as for other works in its genre and style. A good way to confirm this to yourself is to read non-canonical apocalyptic text from the same time, region, and culture, such as Enoch, 4th Ezra, and the Apocalypse of Abraham. A genre popular from 200 BC to AD 200. Revelation itself takes its inspiration from the Old Testament books of Daniel, Job, Ezekiel, and Exodus. For all of its importance and prominence now, this revelation was most likely liturgical in origin. It should also be noted, evident from the narration, that the human author of Revelation really did think that he was living in the end of days, and that the second coming of Christ was imminent, and that the destruction of his world and current reality was inevitable. There is no hint of parody nor irony in his work. The author was taking his subject seriously and presenting his vision as sternly as possible. The allusions in the text are historical references, which occurrences are provable and verifiable, taking the work out of the realm of pure prophecy to that of a view that history is cyclical and events that repeat themselves have deeper metaphysical meaning and significance. Hence, the work repeats themes from the Egyptian Exodus, the Babylonian exile, the Hellenistic Alexandrian conquest, and the expansion of Rome, or Roman expansion, in a way that overlaps, enthralls, and thrills readers to this day. And with this eye to the way events in history unfold, it is easy to misconstrue later events as being accurately predicted by the book of Revelation, because they too can be seen in the secular cycle of history repeating itself. Also, it is important to note that the author's witnessing was through visions. Visions in the Jewish and Christian tradition are by their nature symbolic and full of metaphoric symbolism that must be decoded to be understood. And only those with the correct cipher are said to be able to understand it. Think of Joseph and Pharaoh's dreams, how it was God who was interpreting, and Joseph was just the messenger. Proof that Revelation is from the school of John comes in the form of word choice and theology within the text. Jesus as the Word and the Lamb, Mary as the woman, references to the idea of living water. All these things are hints to the school of theology they stem from, they grow from, as well as the setting and location within the story of Revelation. These locations were the region or regions where tradition states John established his church and ministry. For Church Father commentary on the Revelation of John, it is best to look to St. Clement, St. Irenaeus, Origen, St. Dionysius, Eusebius, St. Victorianus, St. Jerome, and Tertullian. From them we get the four most common ways to interpret the work: futurist, preterist, historicist, and idealist. More modern scholarly views include critical and symbolic, while other, less common in traditional or academic circles, but popular in American Christianity, is millennialism, postmillennialism, and premillennialism. Now, all of these have high and low views, have majority and minority views within them. But this is a good introduction to the book of Revelation. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as I will be closing out my biblical study on this channel by talking about the book of Revelation, I hope to see plenty of comments and questions down below. Thank you. Please like and subscribe, and welcome back to my channel.